Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast. My name is Jed and we are in the Philosophical Midwifery book today. At the time of recording, we have just started two other fantastic other books. We've just started the Symposium. We've just started Is It All Relative? Hey, welcome. Yes, we're on the road to affiliate. All we need is 3 viewers on average per stream. I think a couple of times, or maybe even, I'm not sure how often. Anyway, 3 live viewers per stream, and I get to be an affiliate of Twitch. And that's when all the other viewers start rolling in. I get all of the viewers from the other people who are popular on Twitch, like Hassan Piker and Asmund Gold. They are the 2 people with all of the viewers. Until I get affiliate, and then we'll watch out. So, Is It All Relative is a book we've just started at the time of this recording. And by the way, I post all of the videos to YouTube, so you can check them out there. And there's a playlist where you can go through it at your own pace, and you can read along with the text if you want. And also we have the text on the screen, of course. So we are addressing the pathologos, doing the most important activity a human being can do while they're alive on this planet, philosophical midwifery, to address their pathologos, which is, of course, the unsuspected false belief that we carry about ourselves and reality that cause our problems and prevent us from moving from belief-based thinking to understanding. And of course, it's the love of understanding, or philodianoia, that brings us here together. It's the love of understanding that makes the children cheer in my soundboard. Right, RM?
But this is probably
stupidest, craziest
Stop telling me it's stupid, RM. So we are doing that here. But one aspect to the pathologos is addressing the cultural beliefs that surround our pathologos. You can think of it as concentric circles. We have our individual pathologos, that is the cause of our problems, that we are here to remedy. But with that, around that is the beliefs of our culture. So even though you might not be religious, it will be very beneficial to understand the nature of the religion around which, or within which your family grew up, or you grew up within your family. So the family within the society and the religion. Because it will have an influence. It'll be one of the aspects. As we've been seeing in the pathologos, there are many sides to the diamond of our single pathologos, our problem, our puzzle. And only when we see all of the sides can we be free of it. So another aspect to it is not only our religion, but the cultural beliefs, or the milieu beliefs of the culture at the period of time and place that we were born. And one of the prevalent, most common beliefs of our current time is it's all relative. There is no truth. Don't bother with philosophy. Everything is just a matter of perspective. What's true to you is what's true to you, and what seems true to me is true to me, and never the twain shall meet. So all this philosophy talk, this love of understanding to discover the truth and experience enlightenment states like pure knowledge or ousia, and beyond that, the state of phronesis and discovery of the self. Nah, don't worry about that. What's important to do in this world is to find out what beliefs are popular and pretend that you are going along with them, or actually believe them if you can, so you can make the big bucks. So you can scam people, or fit in, or get accepted, or get a nice pat on the head at the religious picnic on Sunday. Okay? Because there's no point in understanding the truth, because there is no truth. Everything is relative to perspective or opinion. So philosophy is really what Socrates calls the opposite of philosophy, philodoxia, a love of opinions. And everyone has their own opinion, right? That's a very common one. Now, what's interesting is, even though it is, kind of antithetical to everything we're doing here, it is kind of, it does have a protective quality to us philosophers, because as we are learning, the pathologos that keeps us tied to ignorance and savagery and caveman thinking and baby brain thinking and mush brain thinking, that pathologos, of course, we identify with, we don't know we're carrying, but it also gives us our group identity, our clan identity. And for it to be the most powerful force in the universe, more powerful even than enlightenment experiences, then, we must cling to it strongly. It must have a really strong, protective mechanism, you'd say. Meaning, any understanding, anything that challenges your deeply held beliefs, human beings will fight viciously against. How dare you not have my belief or my way of being? And of course, we see that playing out on the societal and global scale with, people being genocided by different ethnic groups and religious groups and political groups who think, oh, it's okay. These people we can be the absolute worst kind of animal towards because they challenge our way of being. So it's very interesting because as philosophers who want to benefit themselves and the world through the removal of beliefs that cause our problems and the love of understanding, which can be shared with all people, everyone can play the understanding game, we would, in effect, be challenging everyone's pathologos, because we challenge pathologos themselves, making us a target of the worst qualities within human nature. But we can always turn around and say, hey, aren't we all entitled to our own opinion? Therefore, leave me alone. So there is that. So we are addressing that particular cultural milieu belief in the new book we've just started, Is It All Relative, which you can check out on the channel too. And we also have just started along with the symposium, because to be in the game, we have to have our nose in a Platonic dialogue. That's part of the rules, because that's where we are most challenged to use understanding in the highest way. And it's when we are using our understanding in the highest possible way that we can surface our blocks. And it's our blocks we have to look at to do philosophical midwifery and do the most important thing. So you have to have your nose in a Platonic text, and the one that we have just started is called the Symposium. So at the time of recording, we just started that, and you can check that out too. So we have to be seeking the highest good, understanding the true nature of self-reality, or in the Symposium, the aspect of reality that is beauty itself. So being, or pure mind, or ousia, which is prior to the world of becoming. So that's what metaphysics is. Philosophy is the study of metaphysics. Not the way it's taught in school, of course. That's not philosophy. That's love of opinions, philodoxia. But philosophy is the study of being. And what's interesting is, while our understanding of being is confirmed in the same experience, its mind knowing itself, nous, of the realm of being, not the realm of becoming that we see through our senses. The physical world is always becoming, it's changing. While the same experience verifies our understanding, you can approach it in different ways. For example, in the Republic, we approach that experience of nous or ousia through the aspect of being that we call justice itself, or self-justice. Most perfectly ordered in the perfect way. Fair in the way it should be, most necessarily. That's one of the qualities of being. Another quality of being is it's most perfectly ordered and harmonized and balanced in a way that we would call it beauty itself. It is the highest experience of beauty. So we can mythologize that by saying, oh, one of the gods is Aphrodite, or one of the aspects of being is beauty itself. So the highest use of dianoia, highest use of understanding applied to the aspect of being called beauty itself, that's the symposium. And of course, we get to learn about a female master of the Logos, master of dianoia, enlightened guru, Diotima of Manatineia. So anyone who says, philosophy is just for the boys, you'll say, well, who taught the boys? Who was Socrates' teacher? Diotima, who was a lady. Ooh. Ooh. So there you go. Is it all relative? Cultural milieu belief, having our nose in a Platonic text, the symposium, and that third thing which we mentioned already today, religion. The pathologos that we're addressing today also functions within the cultural religious beliefs of our age and your culture. And so we also are reading a dialogue in heaven between Socrates, the man himself, and Jesus. Socrates and Jesus, a dialogue in heaven. Wow. Only recently published. Fantastic, fantastic. Very, very exciting, that one. And we've just started that. You can check that out too on YouTube if you want to. And I think what we're going to do is maybe just do one after the other. If I can find myself getting into a routine, depending on my music gigs and things, maybe we could have Is It All Relative Fridays? Socrates and Jesus Thursdays, something like that. But yeah, haven't really decided, so it's going to be kind of up in the air at the moment. But yeah, but we have to keep going with the philosophical midwifery book as we go through those other three. So that's where we are on the channel. And where we are in this series, of course, is we are halfway through the second case study, subject B, who's going through an early scene with his papa, dealing with the lawnmower of fate. Where he picked up some things that, even though he understands them to be false, knows them to be false, I should say, even though he knows some statements about what he is not good at, his limitations, he knows that to be false, he believes it anyway. Beliefs that have dictated the course of his entire life. What he can and cannot pursue, the quality of his relationship with his wife, all based on something he believes to be true, even though he knows it's not true. This is the significance of this evolutionary movement from belief to understanding. We don't say the meaning of life for human beings is to move from belief to understanding because we love understanding. We do love understanding. It's the funnest game in town. It's the best game in town.
Where's the joy? Where's the childlike wonder?
Full of childlike wonder, dude. But it's because beliefs are not based on truth. They can be in a specific class that we are going to discover in the symposium, but usually they're not. Because if it's based on truth, then why don't you understand it? Why would you have to believe someone else? And what we are seeing here, human beings believe things that are wrong and harmful even when they know they are wrong and harmful. Globally, politically, we know genocide's bad, still happening. We know capitalism is bad, unsustainable, still happening. We know that wealth is a relative judgment, meaning you can't have billionaires without poverty and suffering and exploitation. You still have capitalism. We know Nazism is bad. Some people love Nazism. Big political movement in America right now. The MAGA. We know these things to be bad and harmful and wrong, yet still people believe them to be true or believe them to be good and live their life according to that. Equally so, there are things that we know to be good. For instance, we are seeing in subject B, he knows that he is good at working on small things, but he believes that he can't. So our beliefs can contradict what we know in both ways, believing what's bad even though it's good, and vice versa. Isn't that interesting? What weird creatures we are. Why are we so loyal to beliefs that are harmful to ourselves, to our loved ones, to our relationships, to the world, to our species? We are savages with nuclear weapons. And to understand why we are savages is simply we believe. Most people make sense of the world through belief, not through understanding. Why? We don't allow that for other things like flying a plane. If you're sitting in first class and you've had a few drinks, maybe you're born to privilege. Oh, I could fly the plane. Get a few whiskeys in you. You knock on the pilot's cabin, cockpit. Ooh, cockpit.
You are a fantastic moron.
Was what we would say to that person who says, hey, I believe I can fly the plane. He would say, no. What? Just because you believe it to be true after a few whiskeys doesn't make it true. We demand understanding from our pilots. Do we demand understanding from our kings? Nope. Do we demand understanding from our kings or that class, the political class? No. Do we demand understanding from religious, the clergy? No. So there's two professions, people who are the most irrational, immature, and harmful. With the most power in our world, they're the only real two professions that we have for these people. Everything else, you need to understand how to fly a plane. You need to understand how to fix a car to be a mechanic. You need to understand how to do surgery to become a surgeon. Don't need to understand jack shit to be a politician or a priest. Isn't that interesting? That we are so irrational and immature when it comes to what's most meaningful to ourselves and our race. Also, parents. Any idiot can be a parent. And that's also what we discovered when we were reading chapter 3. The pathologos are condemned and defended. So, yeah, I think that was what it was. Condemned and defended. Or the defense of the pathologos, when we want to share what we are learning about the significance of understanding our family pathologos. Now, everyone's going to be different, even within a family. But it's going to be very common. There's going to be a lot of shared characteristics within the family. Hey, you are learning what's been the most significant and important thing for your life. Maybe for your evolution up until this point. Of course you want to share it with your loved ones. Fuck me. Good luck. Because especially parental figures will defend their right. I don't get to play king or priest anywhere else because I'm not a tyrant and I'm not a pope. But I get to play it on you at home. The defense of the parents getting to play this tyrannical bullshit role on their kids. That's the sadism. That's our desire to act in a way that's harmful. Why? Because it's our false model of what it means to be a knower. And we all want to know. We all want to be a knower. That's why we're here. Of course, true knowing requires philosophical midwifery, having your nose in a Platonic text, and maybe even reading these other dialogues to know about the milieu and the religious beliefs that surround your pathologos. Oh, and dream analysis, let's not forget. So it takes a lot of work and courage and character and development to actually reach the stage of knowing. And you better have some dianoia, a love of dianoia, philodianoia, along with that knowing experience. Otherwise, how are you going to use it? How are you going to communicate it unless you know the dialect? How are you going to protect it, maintain it, and utilize it unless you have an understanding of that which you know? And how are you able to go beyond it to know the self if you are not able to reflect upon that knowing experience with understanding to wonder about its causes? So there's the nous and dianoia required. How many people do you know tick all those boxes? If I were to hazard a guess, it would be a big, fat goose egg. What? Boo. So, therefore, people defend their right to cosplay or pretend to be, the irony being what they are actually doing is not knowing, it's the exact opposite. Because knowing, especially with understanding, is beneficial. It benefits. Knowing how to do surgery, you can benefit your patient. Knowing how to do animal medicine, knowing how to look after your animals, you can benefit your kittens. Whereas this king or clergy, to reject and squash understanding and knowing, to cosplay as the knower, does the exact opposite. It's the cause of harm in our human world. That's the irony. Vice is the opposite of virtue, or the model is the shadow of virtue. By cosplaying what is true virtue, you actually do the worst harm. To inflict this injustice while pretending to be justified. But human beings will fight tooth and nail for their right to do so, which is disgusting and sick, but also something we have to, in spite of that sickness, keep our cool and have courage to understand. If we want to address it, if we want to be good people, and if we want to be a good influence in the world. But more important than all that, if we want to do our own jobs for ourselves. To stay true to the love of understanding, to the path of the Logos, in spite of people defending their right to be savages to others, including our own family members. Including that voice in your head. I've got a right to beat myself up. Do you? Why would you? Does it help anyone? Who are you imitating when you beat yourself up? Who are you imitating when you think you make people feel better if you put yourself down? Puts them at ease, right? You don't want to be arrogant. Oh, no, definitely not. Really? Are human beings helped when they're put down? Are human beings helped when they're told they're no good, when the truth is that the opposite is the case? The self is the most noble. Does it help anyone to punish them? And when you defend the right to do it to yourself, who are you imitating? And that's the most important thing, to learn to be a friend to ourselves. Takes work. No, takes fun. What's the thing that we say on the channel all the time?
Where's the childlike
Where's the childlike wonder, dude? It's the most fun game in town.
You're a wizard, a wizard, a wizard, a wizard, a wizard.
You're a wizard. It's the hero's journey that we're all here to take. So it's fun, but it takes time. And what we are learning today is what exactly is involved in that process. The hero's journey, the hero's quest, the most important quest. Everything we've been talking about, what exactly is involved. So we are seeing subject B go through that. What's involved? Curiosity, openness. And openness and curiosity and sincerity to follow the questions of the midwife. And as we've been learning, the more we understand the process of midwifery itself, well, the better we can follow along, anticipate where it's going even, make sure that the dialogue is staying on track sometimes, understand. So some questions require a level of maturity and understanding about midwifery. For example, if the subject recognizes that midwifery is important, then his pathologos is likely to come up. If the subject recognizes the midwife is an important figure in their life, equally so, the pathologos will itself come up. And if you have a recognition of that, then you can gain further insight, move quicker towards your goal, move quickly like a thief, because you will have real-time examples of the very thing you are trying to look at in the conversation itself. The conversation itself will probably be a reflection of that very pathologos you are trying your best to discover. You're Sherlock Holmes searching for Moriarty, but Moriarty's in the room. This is the significance for learning the process as you go through the process. So we can wonder what level of understanding does subject B have of the midwifery process? He's been in the game for 2 years at the time of this talk. And we'll see how difficult it is to go through. And we're also learning what is involved on the other side of the game. What are we learning to do as midwives? How do we ask those questions? How do we best facilitate this reflection? How do we create the best conditions for human development? Let's jump in. Here we are. Now, I hope you have your philosophy juice. Okay, now for me, it's been a minute since we've gone through this, so I want to just quickly read through it from the start of the dialogue just to bring myself up to speed. Subject B was married, 35-year-old college graduate pursuing his goal to be a writer. He had been exploring his blocks to his goals for 2 years with no prior experience of any other psychotherapeutic modalities. His father was a medical technician and an inventor. His mother was a housewife and his 3 sisters were housewives. So these are 5-minute intervals. After an initial difficulty stating his goal, subject B mentions he has some practical financial problems facing him. He states, "I want to write literature. I want to write stories." He reports the book he is writing is becoming extremely involved. Now it's interesting, now that we get to review from the beginning, we've already seen the significance of the opening. What's the significance of his book becoming involved? Nothing the first time we read it. But now that we know what played out with the intricacies of the lawnmower, it has a greater meaning. Kind of how we read Platonic dialogues. Question mark. It's becoming extremely involved, but I love it. Also, what have we seen about how his pathologos affects his relationships to his loved ones? So we're seeing the aspects to the diamond of the pathologos problem. Remember, he had difficulty making love to his wife because of the headaches. So already we can see more in it. Now, we are going through this to learn about midwifery, but this is the kind of fun that you can have going through this process yourself, because it's a way of being. It's a new way of being. It's the way of being that we're here to learn. So as we review our own talks, we'll see more and more in it. Same thing for dreams. Same thing for platonic dialogues. I love it, but he has a recurring dialogue with himself about writing that disturbs him. Well, you're going to write a book, but maybe you should spend your time looking for a job, you know? And maybe you should spend your time writing. You should spend time writing something you can get paid for. He ends his reflection with, besides that, I have headaches a lot. Interesting. Remember how as we had learning by our reading of philosophy, and in the other dialogues, we really reflect on the opening. What's the origin? What's the opening paragraph? What's the opening page about? What's the setting? Does the beginning reflect the whole? Are there promises made in the beginning? Questions or puzzles to be solved? Same thing for a dream. Same thing for, we haven't gotten into this yet, but you can wonder about this and project this out. Any tangent. Any distracting tangent or fantasy. You're reading a book, you're meditating, you're focused on a game you like to play, and all of a sudden you get a distracting thought that takes you on a little journey. Maybe in a conversation with someone, you're trying to focus on a dialogue and they go off on a tangent. If you chase them down that rabbit hole, you'd completely waste everyone's time. Right-wingers are very good at doing this. News journalists are very bad at recognizing it. They need to learn how to do their job better, which would be this. But what's interesting is, before going down on that journey, you can just start. What was the very first statement? Before going on that fantasy in your head. How does it begin? How does this begin? Well, there's this becoming involved. He loves it. But then there's a dialogue with himself, a relationship with himself. Look for a job, write something you get paid for, and headaches. When asked when he has these headaches, he discusses a fantasy he had coming to this talk, where he pictured himself walking out without talking. He acknowledges that he knows he should specify the problem he has when pursuing his goals, but he says, "I'm not doing it," adding, "I'm unable to move." And then he reports that he has his headaches all day and they restrict his activities, saying, "The only things I do are the things I have to." So, I can't do anything for myself. If I get rid of the headache, I feel like I could do a lot of things. He further reports, "There is one time that I know that I have had it every week without fail." He notices the headache begins when he's driving home after teaching a night class. Which he describes as good, everything is fine, and then the headache becomes more painful as it gets closer to bedtime, which puts stress on his lovemaking.
suffer much?
When asked if he saw any relationship between the headache state and the fantasy, he replies he doesn't. Reminded that he just said that he can do the have to things, but he cannot do the things I want to. So he doesn't see the connection yet. That's an interesting thing, right? It might seem obvious to everyone else, but this is the whole point. Doesn't matter if it's obvious to us. People have their problems for their own learning. We try and create the ideal conditions for them reflecting to put the pieces together. So we remind them, hey, by the way, the headache state in the fantasy, you remember the have to and the want to? Then he asked how similar that was to the state in the fantasy. So you remember, he had a fantasy of having to or wanting to. He has a headache thinking about maybe he wants to do midwifery. He wants to make the love. He says, number 4, have tos keep me where I'm at, but the want tos, if I could do that, that would be fantastic. He reports that he becomes terrified when waking up with the headache because he knows that his whole day is ruined. And even though the headache may last all day, it does not interfere with the have-tos, but he knows it will prevent him from concentrating on what he wants. And when asked to reflect on his inability to concentrate, he reports, I want to cry because I can't keep my mind on it. Whoops. He recognizes that state of mind is one familiar to him since childhood. When directed to reflect on a time when it was particularly intense, he recollects an episode with his father, where here we go, the early scene, where he has reviewed in previous talks. So, it's a relationship, remember. It's a process, remember. It ain't easy to evolve from beliefs that are false and cause our problems to freedom from our problems, clarity, and being able to understand for ourselves. So he's talked about this scene often. 2 years, remember, he's been in midwife talks. Patience. And also fun. Every conversation we can learn more about ourselves, about what it means to be human, and about our art. So he recalls an episode with his father that he had reviewed in a previous talk. He recalls that his father had bought a lawnmower. It was a weird brand and it broke down soon after being purchased. Subject B went on to describe how he took it apart. He saw how it worked and he identified the broken part. Wowee. They journeyed there to get... Oh, wait. His dad located the part shop some 50 miles away where they could get the needed part. They journeyed there together. They got the part, and when he returned home, B put it together exquisitely. Painted every part and reflected. It was a beautiful thing.
Too stupid to understand, and that's weird that you think that. Talking about a bunch of slop.
Okay,
I'm too pure.
there we go. He recalls that the lawnmower ran perfectly until the governor kicked out and it blew up. His father said, "You don't know how to work on small things." Interesting lesson from his earliest teacher, our parents, about what we are and what we can and can't do. Ain't it? When asked to consider by us the midwife and judge his father's remark, any milieu belief that says, "Don't judge me, or thou shalt not judge," can't have that and do this. You have to judge, you have to think, you have to conclude. Otherwise, you'll be a slave to this fucking stupid, terrible belief ignorance. Very important. So, Judge, we ask him, judge your father's remark. He says, I think it was bullshit.
If you don't understand this, you're
What?
I can't walk and chew gum at the same time.
Says his father, and we say it's bullshit, and then we say, but then I think I believed him. Why? We ask him. Isn't it true? And then he was asked to explore what test should be applied to determine whether he knows how to work on small things or not. He responds that while he knows he passed that test, it was tough to believe it. He said he knew it was a poorly designed lawnmower, but he never believed it. So we can ask, what is at stake? To believe what you know about a lawnmower that your papa picked out. So one of the things that stops us from judging is the implications on our earliest teachers. The ones that are cosplaying the Noah and cause our problems. Well, one of the conditions for our problems. We conclude. So we have the power to undo that conclusion with our understanding. He continues to work on mechanical things and says he feels extremely accomplished when I can do something that is mechanical and precise. Great. When asked how he understands what he is doing, he says, I'm trying to prove him wrong. He asks that he recollects that he took it apart. He saw what was wrong. He understood how the damaged part functions, explained it to his father, and that after they drove 50 miles on his information to get new parts, the shop owner brought the part to him to verify, not his father. So lots of steps involved in kind of excellence or success so far. He then felt the trip with his father was a high because its success depended on himself. Then, having repaired the machine, it appeared better than it was before, since, as he said, he painted every part exquisitely. And it worked perfectly. Right. Sorry, it painted every part exquisitely and it worked perfectly. It started with one pull. He recognizes his father's involvement in many of the stages, but not during the final testing. Ooh, get out of there, says Papa. What's the implications of his teaching that he can't work on small things if he was there to see with his own eyes and verify what is true that he can? Can't play king priest anymore, Papa. Now that's something we are seeing, but of course, it's not for us to say that. But we will have in our own lives something very similar having played out in our past. So we can learn from it for ourselves. He concludes his father was wrong, and he was reminded by the midwife, us, that they both knew who was wrong. And he replies, when you said that, you know what hit me? I knew when we first started to try and find parts, there was a problem in the basic design of that machine. And then he adds that they both knew it was poorly designed, a poorly designed lawnmower. It was a weird one, but it was purchased because it was a good deal. It was pointed out that no praise was mentioned for his work. Reflecting on their relationship, he observed that his father never gave praise but often ridiculed him. Ooh. His father tried to take credit at the parts store. When he first started the lawnmower, it went backwards because he had installed one part backwards. His father fell down laughing at it. He concludes that then when he was being ridiculed, that's the most emotion I got out of my dad. Significant.
That's where you live, in the weirdo pool. You're
Talking about a bunch of slop.
But then he knew what it was and fixed it in about 5 minutes, and it worked perfectly. However, when he had that further success, his father was not around, and was then asked to reflect by us, the midwife, on the curious fact that when we believe something that is contrary to fact, there must be something important going on. That's what we look for as human beings. When are we believing something that is contrary to facts? We all have a limit. Some people reach it a lot sooner. Sexists, racists, these are opposite to facts, but they believe it anyway. Nazis, MAGA, right wing. But even people who are more open, more curious, more self-reflected will have a limit because we all have a pathologos. We want to look for those limits, not as an excuse to inflict suffering to play the Noah role like fascists and right-wingers want to play because they're blocked from actual understanding, which is required to reach actual knowing. No, we want to look for when we believe something that's against the facts because we're here to learn. We're here to discover where is our limit, because that's where we get our clues. And in that sense, we're all the same. Now, we're not all the same in when we do reach our limit, how willing are we to let go of the punishment, the sadistic violence game? Oh, I've found somebody being wrong. Now I can torture them like ICE agents want. Oh, you're wrong. Now I get to grape you. We have to say grape for some reason. Or I get to abuse you. Or I get to kill you. Or send you to a prison camp. Says MAGA, says right wing, says ICE agents, says Nazis, says the Israeli army. Oh, Hamas. See, I found a mistake. You did something wrong. We're not even going to look at the fact that how was that allowed to happen for so long, whether it was a orchestrated thing like all justifications for tyranny. Usually the mistake is something orchestrated to justify that barbarism as punishment. But even then, never. Because this is what we're here for. We're here to find where we missed the mark, to use as clues for our self-reflection in midwifery. So some people are more open to letting go of that disgusting punishment way of being and be open and curious to play the fun game of self-reflection and evolution. So we're all the same in that we all have problems, but we're not all the same in how much character do we have? How much courage do we have to be willing to find where we missed the mark and use that as tools for our self-reflection? That's what makes people better than others. Not when your block comes up or the nature of your block, but upon reaching your block, upon discovering that you believe something contrary to facts, what do you do with it? Are you open to reflect and change your mind? Or are you going to blindly defend your ignorance like a MAGA? So it makes some people better than others. Now, what we want to do is for those good people out there who are more open to self-reflection, create the most ideal conditions for that. So the best people among us as human beings get even better. Because that's what we want in the world. We want lots of those people running around, helping the rest of us. So that's what we're learning here. So we point that out. Hey, by the way, he has been reminded here, when we believe something contrary to fact, there must be something important going on that we're here to discover in midwifery. He responds, what the hell is going on? Nevertheless, reviewing and seeing the evidence once more, he says simply, I still believe it. Pausing, he reflects on the projects they had worked on together, and then says, they all seem to have a flaw. When asked about his relationship with his father during the lawnmower episode, he says, it was warm, it was full, it was rare. Exploring the sequence, so notice, what we are learning is human problems aren't caused by trauma. There's no trauma here. It was warm, it was full, it was rare. It's also the cause of a problem, the problems. Isn't that interesting? Exploring the sequence to the lawnmower blowing up, he is asked what other judgment his father could have made. And he responds, it looks like he could have come out and said, well, I guess it's a weird machine. He sees his father had two alternatives. He could have said either, I blew it or you blew it. Turning point. Where do you want to go, Dad? Do you want to maintain your right to have to play the knower? The cause of suffering, the cause of injustice, the king priest of the family? Or do you want to go the other way and become a good person, develop a good relationship, a new way of being in the family that helps everyone? That's his father's decision. He sees his father had two alternatives. He could have said, I blew it or you blew it. Recognizing that he had been taking the blame, B becomes aware that if I got the blame, that saved him. There we go. There's what it means to love your father. Reflecting thoughtfully, he said, why would I spend my life trying to prove him wrong? For his father knew all along it was a weird machine, and he tolerated it. And within this scene, he showed himself as a warm, caring father. Oh. Oh. The son, for his part, also knew the machine was flawed, but to reveal it would be to run the risk of terminating that rare display of affection. So that's also something that we see in the pathologos. Sometimes both people know that there's a kind of role being said. We're lying here. You're lying and I'm lying. And by the way, I recently just was on my way to a gig on the weekend, and there was some finance bro guy crossing the street, and he saw me with my guitar and whatever. Anyway, I could see that Joker smile. He was trying to play out his version of this. His tyranny, his sickness, his sadism. And he said something that was a lie. He knew it was a lie. He was testing to see if I would go along with that lie to be polite. Testing if I would buy into his pathologos bullshit game. Certain people or certain professions, I'm not saying cops, but cops, or rather undercover cops especially, will play that out. Oh, I'm going to lie to see if you're going to let me get away with my tyranny. Bosses, not just cops, bosses, anybody who is used to being in a position of power over others will play this bullshit out. But that's a human thing. It's just that certain professions allow for tyranny over others without demanding pathologos understanding. Well, midwifery. Anyone who has, people with power over CEOs, bosses, police, anything like that, should have a higher standard of justice. A higher standard of philosophical midwifery mastership in a sane species. That's where we're heading if we are to survive the period where we are monkeys with nuclear weapons. Anyway, you'll start to notice it. You might be a nice person and you'll notice somebody with that smile and they're like, oh, I'm going to lie here. I know it's a lie. I'm going to do this thing. The test to see if you're willing to go along with my lie, then I can play daddy's role. I can be the sort of sick tyrant that was done to me. Keep an eye out for it in the world. See what you see. Oh, and if you want to share your insights with the community, you're welcome to join the Discord. Share your insights. So, he knew it was a weird machine. The son also knew it was flawed, but if he was to tell the truth, he would run the risk of terminating that rare display of affection. While recalling what his father had said, you don't know how to work on small things, he knows it was necessary for his father to admit he had made a mistake. After coming to that conclusion, B says quickly, I wouldn't make a big deal out of it, since he got it so damn cheap. Who gives a shit? We had a lot of fun. See? The truth is fine. The fear, oh, we can't tell the truth because, oh, daddy is just a small wee bean, a wee small bean. This is the fascist argument, right? The Israelis and the Jews are doing genocide, murdering hundreds of thousands of innocent Palestinian children. But whenever anyone criticizes them, that's always the whole, oh, but we're just a small bean. We're just a little small. Don't be, that's anti-Semitism. You can't speak up to daddy. We're just little small. Let daddy crush you, but you can't speak to daddy. This is what I want to do. I want to do to you what daddy did to me. The small bean defense. MAGA, the same thing. Trump, oh, I want to murder people in concentration camps and have my own Nazi SS police under ice. But don't criticize me. I'm just I don't know politics. I'm just a small businessman. Bullshit, is what he said here. Who gives a shit? I wouldn't have made a big deal about it. We had fun. I don't have to lie to my father, and he doesn't have to hold on to the lie out of whatever fear he has. Who gives a shit? Let's just tell the truth and have fun. Now, that's true for this scene. There'll be something similar in all of our early scenes, but also it's true for our species. Let's just tell the truth and have fun, shall we? Or are we going to keep lying about capitalism being necessary, about prisons being necessary, about kings being necessary, about Pope and religion being necessary? Oh, people are just small beans. They need to believe in women being bad and the devil and hell, and you can't think and understand. You have to believe the guy with the big hat because that's Big Daddy. We have to have religion. How will people be okay with life if they don't have lies of religion? We can't think for ourselves as human beings. We have to believe the tyrants and the popes who commit genocide and the crusades. We need Daddy Trump to tell us what to do. We can't think for ourselves. Bullshit. Bullshit. The lies we hold on to shape us. Right. We're here to tell the truth. We're here to learn how to tell the truth. And learn that the truth is fine. And that's a fantastic way of understanding the defense against tyranny. Don't challenge the king or the Pope or Trump or billionaires. We need billionaires. Won't somebody think of the shareholders? Or they have all the risk. They should have the money because they have the risk and they can't handle the risk. They need billions of dollars. They need people to be starving. They're just the small bean defense. Right? Bullshit. We can have fun. Tell the truth. We're all human beings with this origin scene. As we evolve as animals going through an evolving process from belief-based thinking to understanding, let's tell the fucking truth about it so we can become better people and we can have fun. We can do what we're here for. Learn, evolve, have fun, discover new ways of harmonizing ourselves with our planet, with our fellow man, but ultimately harmonizing our own soul or psyche with self via the logos, via understanding, via dialectic. Those big three. The logos, dialectic, or in one word, dianoia. How we harmonize ourselves with the truth. The truth of what? Where do you think truth comes from? Self. The first hypothesis. Which is why we have to keep our nose in a philosophy book. Otherwise, truth? What? Oh, we're learning about that in Plato. Oh, the cause of truth? The one self? Oh yeah, we learn about that in the Parmenides. Have your nose in a philosophy book is necessary. Anyway, keep going. With further reflection, he realizes for his father to acknowledge that he would have to admit to his own mistake. Oh, but he's just a small bead. And in so doing, if he did admit to a mistake, he would preserve this new, mature way of relating. His son has just shown we can look at problems. We can pull the thing apart. We can fix the problems. We can put it back together. If I can do it for a fucking lawnmower, maybe we can do it for ourselves, Dad. Or lie to preserve the old way of being that he got from his dad and his dad and his dad all the way back to caveman times. That's where we are, cavemen. With that inherited family curse that goes through generations till now. Our job now is to turn around, change the game. Now it's his choice. Does he want to change the game? And in doing so, be okay with being wrong, having missed the mark as an opportunity to learn and grow? That would be preserving a new way of being. A new way of relating. Subject B says that's the only way it's going to make anything worthwhile. Otherwise, this whole thing here, that whole thing there, that's going to be love. And who the hell wants that kind of love? Based on lies. Based on oppression. Based on tyranny. Lying to help this jackass play out the sadistic pleasure of crushing someone else. Like every boomer I've met. Not every boomer, but most boomers are like this. Now, everyone is like this. The boomers happen to be in that generation that, they've spent more of their lives solidifying this negative way of being, so they're more inclined to want lies, want you to play along with their tyranny, and don't want to ever be wrong. Ever seen a MAGA admit they were wrong to anything? Ever seen a Christian admit they were wrong about their beliefs? Ever seen an Israeli Jew, a Zionist, admit they were wrong in doing a genocide? I haven't. We can't tolerate that anymore. Because without telling the truth and being okay with making mistakes, and he wouldn't have made a big deal out of it. Who gives a shit if you make a mistake? We're having fun correcting mistakes. That's why we are here. Hey, welcome, Reeve. If you don't allow yourself to be okay with making mistakes, tell the truth about it, see mistakes as an opportunity for having fun and learning the human game, then it's not worth being here. As Socrates says, the unexamined life ain't worth living. You are going to spend your life further entrenching yourself in injustice, further identifying yourself with this fucking bullshit, which will harm your soul. In the Phaedo, he talks about how it harms your evolution. You're going to evolve down, or you're going to go into these terrible places in the afterlife. It's not worth it. It's not worth it to lie to maintain a way of being that's just an imitation of your own parents and their parents back to caveman times. Or, as Subject B puts it, in his words, notice, he's recreating Socrates. The unexamined life isn't worth living, Socrates says. The implications for our, as we just said about the Phaedo, our evolution is terrible. But notice, being a midwife, facilitating this new way of being, he's rediscovering Plato. He's rediscovering the Logos. That's why we say it's not a philosophy. It's just philosophy. It's the philosophy. So what's his way of putting it? Hey. So we are creating the conditions for him to recreate philosophy. We're saying, hey, by the way, recall what your dad said earlier. Bring it to mind. That you don't know how to work on the small things. When we brought that back up in this ideal way of being we call midwifery, B reflects and says it was necessary for his father to admit he'd made a mistake. And B says quickly, I wouldn't have made a big deal out of it. I'm not a fucking fascist like him. We got the mower for cheap anyway. And who gives a shit? We had a lot of fun. Reflecting further, Usia, guided Usia, that's how we learn. He realizes that for his father to acknowledge that, he would have had to admit his own mistake. And if he did admit his own mistake, he would be preserving this new, mature way of relating. Wow. B says, hey, by the way, that's the only thing. Welcome, welcome. That would have made this whole thing worthwhile. Or as Socrates says, the unexamined life isn't worth living. Why? Because this whole activity with his father, the warmness, the affection, the learning, the putting things together, the making it exquisite and beautiful, it would have only been worthwhile if his dad was telling the truth and being okay with learning, making mistakes. Otherwise, Subject B reasons, this whole thing here, that is going to be love. The model of love that's going to play out in his whole life, to himself, to his loved ones, and his relationships. And who the hell wants that kind of love? Love without understanding is tragedy.
If you don't understand this, you're either being intentionally obtuse because you want to be mad at something and you just don't know what you're supposed to be mad at, so you're the NPC chip meme, or you're really stupid.
Says Subject B to that. It became clear that through this lawnmower event, he had what appeared to him, appearance is one way of learning from this early childhood, from our childhood scenes, appeared to be a meaningful relationship with his father. He remembered that they related as if they were equals, but then he exclaimed, the consequences of taking the blame. My whole being is something wrong with it. Like, I'm just a kid. By lying with our family members and to ourselves about what's true, to be loving, don't we want our loved ones to feel good? Then just diminish yourself, right? Because our parents are just small beans. We have to lie to them. if that's true, your whole way of being is going to have something wrong with it. And what we are learning in philosophy is our way of being ultimately is being itself. That's metaphysics, not the physical world. The cause of the physical world, the realm of being, that's mind. And the cause of that is the self. There is not anything wrong with yourself. There is not anything wrong with your mind. And there is not anything wrong with understanding. It's the exact opposite. We are here to develop the love of understanding, philodainoia, to discover and know ourselves as divine, as being, as eternity, and to use understanding to go beyond that, to know ourself that is even more transcendent than God. Because there has to be some cause for the Creator God, for being. Therefore, all of that is undermined. To take the blame in scenes like that to save belief, to save our loved ones. That's true for this belief, is true for belief itself. So the small being defense for religion, oh, we need to lie to children about Jesus and the saints and the devil and Muhammad, and because we're just small beings. Bullshit. That's a lie. That we are too stupid or the truth is bad. The truth is the opposite. That we can understand and verify for ourselves. That is the point. And we have problems always in our life until we realize that. So that's the providential nature or the caring nature of us having problems. Until we realize this, we go back. Right. The idea that there is a supernatural force that's inherently evil. Disgusting. Not true. Not true. And we'll have problems if we believe it. Because our goal is to know the self. And if the self is the cause of all, and there's the devil, then that means that there is something inherently wrong with your being. So that is an implication of that kind of lie. But the lie that we are looking at in particular for this person, because everyone has their own snowflake, everyone's pathologos is unique to themselves, although we can find commonality within religion and within cultural beliefs that are shared within a culture, some similarities. This one is, hey, if I take the blame for my dad being wrong, because he chose not to admit he was wrong, the consequence is my whole being is there's something wrong with it. And I'm just a kid. I can't be equal. It's through truth and understanding that we're all equals. Can you be equal if there's a chosen people? The Christians or the Jews or whatever? The Scientologists, the Mormons, whoever the fuck. Nope. No equality there. Can you be equal with capitalism? Can you be equal if there are some billionaires and someone starving? Nope. Can we be equal in understanding? Yep. Can we be equal in being and nous and knowledge and ousia? Yep. Can we be equal in the self? Yep. Can we be equal in this new way of being that we are learning here called philosophical midwifery? Bingo. This is the stakes. Trying to recall the event once more, he remarks his father might have made the statement, "You don't know how to work on small things," after he had taken the lawnmower apart. Subject B then says, let me bring up my pencil. Here we go. That would have hurt worse Whoops. That would have hurt worse. Where's my pencil? Because it would be laid out and there would be obvious proof. Then he asks, why does it keep going away? Why does what keep going away? So that's what subject B asks, where we're up to. He asks, why does it keep going away? Puzzling, he adds, it's almost as if I don't want to look at this. Ah, right. This scene he's looked at a lot of times, but this is what we've seen already, the amnesia. There is something that blocks us from remembering these early scenes, blocks us from remembering the influence of this way of being in our life. Hey, like deja vu. We remember I've been through this before. I've had this conversation with myself before. I've been in the situation before. Why do I keep forgetting it? One of the protective aspects of the pathologos, amnesia. It's almost as if I don't want to look at this. When asked, okay, so we are doing the asking. So that's green, I think. Green for us doing the asking. When asked what effect takes the blame, what effect taking the blame has on his understanding of the encounter with his father. So notice, excuse me, everything we've been learning about the significance of the logos, everything we've been learning about being, everything we've been learning about self, informs the questions that we ask. We know we're here to develop understanding. So this midwife can say, hey, what effect does this taking the blame have on your understanding? Why is that a good question to ask? Why not, tell me about your trauma, like a shrink might ask? Or, how does this affect your faith? As like a preacher might ask. We don't ask those questions. Those are dumb questions. Not helpful. Also, we've seen earlier, we've asked him to remember certain things. We've asked him to conclude. We've asked him to judge. Think for yourself. Judge. What would be the test to see whether this statement is true? So here we are saying, hey, what effect, cause and effect, has taking the blame have on, so we've also recognized the significance of taking the blame. And also understanding. That's what it's all about. Philadelphia is the new art we're here to master. Love of understanding. What effect does taking the blame have on your understanding of the encounter with your father? He replies, taking the blame, it makes me forget it. It makes it a foolish thing. He can now conclude that his father laid the thing on me. At this point, he makes a connection and gains an insight. I like that. He makes a purple. He makes a connection and gains an insight into a boat trip that he had made, which is now the subject of his novel. Ooh. What keeps racing, this is him talking, what keeps racing through my mind, because I found the key to the goddamn boat trip just now, and that's what's bugging me. Ooh. B recalls how he had ingeniously saved the sailboat he was captaining from sinking. Oh, by the way, he wrote a book. This book has been published that we're talking about here. So he's having trouble writing this book. He's going through midwifery to remove the blocks to writing this book. So it must be a meaningful book to him. But now he's just had an insight in his midwife talk about the story that he's writing, which is a story about when he was actually captaining a sailboat. So you can actually buy this book. It's called Captain of My Own Boat or something. If somebody, you can find it, or if somebody asks me about it, I can hunt for it. But I think in the middle of the book, it's been a while since I read it, like years. I think he pauses in the middle of the story to talk about the midwifery process he needed to go through to continue the story, which is pretty cool. So he recalls how he had ingeniously saved the sailboat he was captaining from sinking. During a storm, the owner's son, who was also one of the crew, started the ship's motor, which caused the anchor chain to wrap around the ship's propeller and caused the ship to take on water and subsequently run aground. Considering it again puzzling, he reports that he also took the blame for running the ship aground, saying, "Look, I took it." Bro, what you say? Oh, that's not to me. I'm a Muslim, but I believe in Satan. Ah, well, you might want to reflect on where you learnt that belief. Because if there is no facts to show that there is such a thing as a supernatural deity who is inherently evil and wants your suffering, and therefore can justify the infliction of violence, because while you can remove ignorance with understanding, if you say, "Oh no, that's just the devil, he doesn't want to learn, let's just genocide him or genocide his people or kill," then you have been tricked into believing that the cause of human problems is a irrational deity. So reflect on who you got it from. Because as we're seeing here, if we believe something contrary to fact, there's a reason, and that's what we're here to discover as human beings. It's not about defending the beliefs we got from childhood. It's not about taking the blame. Of course, everyone believes things that are wrong. That's the nature of belief. We want to move from belief to understanding. So as we go through that process to developing understanding, and this is the highest kind of understanding applied to creating the conditions for others to go through that journey from belief to understanding. When we see that we believe something contrary to fact, that's a clue. Write it down. We're here to surface these clues. Now, subject B's father didn't want to. Well, that's not a very nice thing to say. Subject B's father. This is true for everyone. You're not the only person who believes in Satan, my guy. It's a very common belief. That's false. But subject B's father didn't want to admit he was wrong. To keep the, "Oh, I'm a knower, I know everything, all my beliefs are the right beliefs." And what subject B is realizing is, what the fuck was the point of that? Why live that way? Why lie? To save the beliefs. If beliefs cause human problems and understanding is what solves problems and allows for our development, if that's the evolutionary jump we're here to make, why not have every relationship based on a love of understanding? Otherwise, what the hell is the point? That's the significance of midwifery, to create the conditions of self-reflection for people to come to that realization on their own. Otherwise, I'm going to kill all the Muslims, or I'm going to kill all the Jews, or I'm going to kill all the Protestants, or I'm going to kill all the Mormons. Same fucking bullshit. Division by belief. No division in understanding. That's why we're here. That's what it means to be mature. So, equally so, taking the blame for the owner's son causing the mistake in the boat is something he himself learnt he is seeing from his relationship with his father. Oh, taking the blame, that's part of being loving, right? Oh, interesting insight, Mr. B. He agrees that it was in accepting the lie, and we've cut off the corner of the book here. In accepting the lie, it was by accepting the lie that he could keep the relationship with the owner's son. That's the thing. That's that tyranny I said. The guy with the smile that says, oh, I'm going to lie here. If you want a relationship with me, you're going to have to play along with my lie. Otherwise, I'm not going to be your friend. So he thought that accepting the lie, he could keep the relationship with the owner's son. In Islam, a belief system, shaitan is a border term encompassing any rebellious being or evil influence. Right. And so what we learn in philosophy is there's no such thing as evil. It wouldn't make sense. How could there be a higher intelligence that also lacks the simple maturity to use intelligence to benefit? And there's no evidence for it, so why would we believe something without evidence? That's an absurd way of being. Not unique to that or religion. Why believe Mary was a virgin if you're a Christian? You can't prove that. Why believe the earth is 5,000 years old if you're a New Age Christian, or whatever you call them? Because we have evidence to prove that's wrong. So it's not a matter of having all of the right beliefs from childhood. You can't do that. Being a human being means you will get false beliefs. We wouldn't be here if we knew everything already. That would be absurd. The question is, do we have the maturity and courage and integrity to discover where our beliefs run contrary to facts, like in this particular one, and subject B knows that he can work on small things, but he believes that he can't. He believes he should take the blame for other people to be kind, or whatever he concludes here, but that's not good either. So by pursuing our highest goals, which require understanding, you can't fly a plane based on religious beliefs. You can't run a boat based on religious beliefs. You can't do fucking anything based on beliefs except be a tyrant king or a tyrant preacher. The two professions where you don't need understanding can be based on beliefs, and beliefs are not true. They can be sometimes in certain instances, but usually they're not. That's why belief-based cognition causes problems and understanding-based cognition solves problems. Because you can understand all belief systems. You can understand Buddhism and Taoism and Hinduism and Islam and Judaism and Christianity and Protestantism and so on and so on and so on. You can understand the whole thing. That's the Parmenides. That's the book called The Parmenides, where he gives you the outline. The greatest book never read. While Iblis is the specific leader of these forces, in Christianity, Satan is a specific entity, a fallen angel, and the devil. I've heard that story before too. Iblis is a jinn. Ooh, like a genie. While Satan is believed to be a fallen angel, the Sufi perspective offers a unique interpretation of Iblis's actions as a test of faith. Well, interesting. And we can turn around and say, what kind of sick person would want to test faith? Faith means, by definition, to believe in something unprovable. Why the fuck would you ever do that? Oh, I know why. To be a slave. What does a king say? I get to have all the money and I get to abuse and kill people because I have a divine right to rule. God says I should be king. What does a priest say? I get to have all the money and abuse the children because I am closer to God. Any priest. Because kings and priests and parents are the only professions where understanding is not demanded. You can just lie. Imagine becoming a mechanic and saying, hey, why does the carburetor fit into that part of the engine? And the master mechanic you're trying to learn from says, oh, just have faith. What the fuck? You'd laugh and you'd get out of there quick smart. Oh, I'm going to test your faith, says the mechanic who doesn't want you to learn because he's a bastard. Get the fuck out of here, son. That's maturity. And that's the question of the book. Why do we still fight Nazis? Why is there still religion? Why is there still religious war? Why are we mature and rational when it comes to so many things, like flying a plane or being a mechanic? But why are we immature and irrational when it comes to the nature of self and reality and politics? And the answer, the pathologos belief. And we're seeing here this relationship with his father where he learned to reject truth and understanding and thinking for himself, to have faith or belief in the family way of being, becomes a way of being that played out when he tried to become a captain of a boat. And someone else, some Nepo baby crew member, was causing the problem, but he thought, oh no, I have to take the blame. Do we see that in religion? Oh no, it's my fault, I'm a sinner. Do we see that in politics? Oh no, it's my fault I'm not a billionaire. I'm not pulling myself up hard enough with my bootstraps. Same shit, different day. What is it? Blind allegiance to belief that we get from children, as children, from our first teachers, king priests of the house, that we associate with love, that becomes a way of being that keeps us trapped in our suffering and problems, individually and as a species. Therefore, the meaning of life is to recognize that and go through the movement from belief-based thinking, again, believing someone else, not based on truth, to understanding-based thinking, which can be used to verify in nous, or direct apprehension of the eternity of being. We have an immortal soul. It's what we understand in philosophy. And it's not a belief. You actually have to get there. You go to the party yourself. That's the point. In the symposium, we learn about the nature of beauty itself, experienced as bliss, not because it's fun to hear about Socrates getting there and his teacher Diotima, a woman, being there. No, so we can go there too. And we can have fun at the party. And we also see that human evolution and story about, hey, what if there was no religion? And we just all were bound together in a way of being where we loved to learn and understand? Our whole planet could be a lot of fun. Live harmoniously with all beings, with our planet. Every problem is an opportunity for midwifery learning. Completely free of oppression and work. We'd have fun. But it's also true in the individual, because he's saying, hey, look, if my dad was okay with making a mistake and said so, he would be preserving a new way of being, and I wouldn't give a shit that he made a mistake. I wouldn't make a big deal of it since he got the lawnmower so cheap. Who gives a shit? We had a lot of fun. I'm not going to crucify him for making a mistake. I'm not sending him to an imaginary place called hell for eternity. The kind of lie that we teach to children as a form of child abuse to, again, preserve belief. We can just have fun. But if we don't discover this new way of being, it becomes a way of being that ruins our whole life. And here he's saying, hey, the owner's son started the ship's motor, which caused the anchor chain to wrap around the ship's propeller, caused the ship to take on water and run aground. Considering it again, it wasn't obvious to him that he was just repeating his early learning. He reports, I also took the blame for the ship running aground, saying, look, I took it. He agrees that in accepting the lie Oh, testing the faith. Ooh. That he could keep the relationship with his owner son. Keep the relationship with God. Keep the relationship with priest. If you accept the lie. When asked what would have happened if he had disagreed with his father. Oh, here we go. Let's delete that guy. Not this man. He said, when you said that, I felt something horrible would happen. Okay, so what are we doing? We are creating the ideal conditions. We're not saying, you better agree with me that pathologos is the cause of human problems, otherwise you're going to go to hell. No. We create the conditions for individual reflection. We are here for a reason. Everyone is valuable. So we as the midwives, click the right button, we ask, what would happen if you disagreed with your father? B says, when you said that, I just felt something horrible would happen. Something terrible. Ooh. And since he saw no other alternative, he could only keep that pain and swallow that shit. Ugh. Language. Terrible language.
We're gonna engage in dishonesty?
Engage in dishonesty.
Disgusting. I'm so disgusted.
Disgusting language. Swallow that shit. My fault for not being specific, but meant the theological Christian Satan. Wasn't aware that it had the same spelling. Okay. Cool. Same theme, same idea. Similar idea. Right. Isn't it interesting though? There are similarities. There's a big scary force that, well, if you don't believe in what the priest says, or there's a big scary force. Hey, what does MAGA say? If you don't believe in what the king priest Trump says, the big scary immigrants will take all your jobs. If you don't believe in what the king priest Netanyahu has, those evil Palestinians will eat all the food or something. And what he is seeing here is, if he doesn't go along with the bullshit, false belief and belief-based thinking, instead of understanding-based thinking, which would be a better way of relating, something terrible would happen. Isn't that interesting? Same relationships, different terms. Whether you're talking about MAGA, whether you're talking about genocide of the Palestinians, whether you're talking about challenging the family tradition, whether you're talking about Islam or Christianity or any of those things. Same fucking story. Something terrible will happen if you don't accept the lie. And what we can do in our study of midwifery is realize, hey, where did this come from? On one level, there's a metaphysical cause. Why would our soul evolve into a time and space realm where we get this false belief? Maybe it reflects a problem our soul had that prevents us from participating in higher dimensions of reality. Or I can't participate in the 8th dimension of reality because, there's something scary and evil, whatever, of the truth. But also there is a evolutionary cause. Before humans had language and cognition, early caveman times, being different, venturing out of the cave, get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. There goes your species. So this big scary other, whether it be Satan, whether it be the Jews if you're one religion, or the Muslims if you're another religion, the big scary other, or the foreigners if you're a MAGA, the brown people if you're a racist, the women if you're an incel or a sexist, the big scary other had an evolutionary cause or had a survival purpose that has outlived its usefulness. We can stop playing that we are just small beings. We can't face the truth. Yeah, we can. That was a lie that kept cavemen alive. We're done with that. Otherwise, the big scary other we bomb, and there goes our species. Nuclear Armageddon. Genocide. Capitalism. But he felt like that big scary other would happen if he would challenge his father in this scene. So he felt his only option was to be a good believer, or be a good MAGA, or be a good genocidal Israeli, or be a good family member, and swallow that pain and swallow the shit being fed to him, which is very rude language.
If you don't understand this, you're either being do a poggers.
He needs to do a poggers and
I'm cute. Like, it's cutie pie.
Okay, Emma's not helping at the moment. Now, asking repeatedly why he believed his father. So again, we ask, hey, what, by the way, why did you believe it? Why did you believe it? What made it believable? This thing that is opposite to fact. Hey, could this be a way of being? Ever met a believer of this or that religion or this or that whatever belief system? Instead of asking them what they believe, why don't we ask them why they believe it? Who are you copying? Who are you believing? And by the way, have you noticed that when we believe something opposite or contrary to fact, there's something interesting going on that we might be here to discover as human beings? So, repeatedly asking as a midwife. Again, it might not be safe to ask those questions all the time. This is the ideal conditions, of course. This is the new way of being we want as a species and as individual. The midwife suggested that the way to answer the question further was to explore that state of mind in the past scenes prior to the lawnmower case, where someone in the family opposed his father. Why are we doing that? We've already gone through the 12 stages of... Let's do it again. In the previous chapter, chapter 4, we got the 12 stages of the dialectic of midwifery. And let's do a quick review, because it's always good to review. Let me just show it. This one here. So the first 4 stages define a problem. 1. So remember, we try our best to frame things within the dialectic, which is the structure of understanding. There are 12 parts: definition, demonstration, division, and conclusion. And of those 12 parts, of those 4, there are 4 within each group, but the end of one is the beginning of the next. So it rolls over. So define your problem with A. Give a demonstration of your problem. So the first category is the definition itself. The definition of your problem. And within that, you have the definition, demonstration. So you have the parts within the parts as well. So what's your problem? Number A. Number 2, give a present demonstration example. 3, division. Sufficient time. What happens in division? You see many examples in many different areas, divided that demonstration, divided that functioning of your problem into other areas so you can find key ideas and themes. And then what's that? From those key ideas and themes, you come to a synthesis or a new conclusion. And that new conclusion becomes the definition of the next category. Yeah, I may write that on the board. It might sound a bit complicated. Right, so remember, the dialectic needs a pen to work. Dialectic has subject in relation to itself, definition. So for example, in the symposium, we want to give, hey, how would you describe beauty itself? Definition. And after you've given the subject in relation to itself, beauty itself, that exists, by the way, how does it function to others, or self to others? Subject, what you've just defined here, how does it relate to others? Or demonstration? By the way, how does that demonstration to others relate to other others? How does it divide up into other things? How does that function of beauty relate to other ways? Relationships, maybe? Or division? From all those divisions, can we find some key ideas or some key themes? Or maybe a way of unifying all of those divisions into a synthesis? So from those into a single other? And then can we take that single other and analyze it? What do we mean by analyze? Analyze. How do you spell it? Analyze. What I mean by analyze is take that synthesis and analyze it against that first definition of beauty. Synthesis and analysis gives us this. Gives us conclusion. Other back to self. So those are the four categories of the dialectic. And of course, the dialectic is the structure of understanding. Which means if we have an intelligible system like philosophical midwifery, it should fit within here. So we have 4 stages of philosophical midwifery that you go through. So, within the definition category, you have your own definition. And then how does it function? So the first, hey, give a definition of your problem. You're doing midwifery. Hopefully you've got a problem. Otherwise, why are you here? What's your problem? Give a definition of it. Now give some examples of it. In your present. Because that's how your problem functions, right? Then have some time to see how this plays out in other areas of your life. Division. Time. So you can find some key themes or ideas. What was it? Key ideas to unfold. Okay. So look for key ideas within your problems. So from those key ideas, you should come to a conclusion. Now that conclusion is you take from those key ideas, how can you synthesize those key ideas that you can then relate back or analyze back to the definition. So in other words, you come to a new understanding from these key ideas about what actually causes your problem. So that's the synthesis and the analysis. All of this is conclusion. The analysis is realizing that what you thought was your problem in the first step isn't actually your problem. In other words, you were wrong. So you see how we want to be wrong? What you believe to be the cause of your problem will not be the cause of your problem. That's why we're open. That's why we need courage. That's why we're okay with making mistakes. That's why we never blame and we never punish. Because you're going to be wrong. It's the first step in midwifery is being wrong about the cause of your problem. So this new conclusion becomes the definition for the next stage, the demonstration stage. So you've got a new understanding about what causes your problem. And it will be tied to a key state of mind. A key state of mind which has negative thoughts, feelings, and inappropriate actions. By the way, once you are familiar with midwifery, you can be the midwife can guide you to compare this new understanding of what causes your problems with your original definition. After subjects realizes that all human problems are understandable, intelligible, they can appreciate this difference as another manifestation of your problem. In other words, that final stage, the synthesis and analysis, the difference between here, I don't know how you spell analysis either. The difference between the analysis and your first definition will reflect the very problem that you're here to discover. That's why it's important to learn about midwifery. You're just going to get so many insights. You're going to go really quickly. You're going to develop really quickly. You're going to solve problems quickly. Because once you get to stage 4, go back to stage 1, the difference between what I thought was my problem and the actual problem is a reflection of my problem. Isn't that neat? It's a win-win.
It's a win-win. There's only two options. One, it's a win-win. It's a win.
Win-win. So, after discussing the role the state of mind has played in their lives, there we go. The new definition is a state of mind that unifies or synthesizes all of those negative thoughts, feelings, and appropriate actions. A feeling state, a state of being, a state of mind. We want to explore a past scene where you experienced it intensely. That's likely where we started with the subject B, exploring a past scene with this papa and the lawnmower from hell. Speaking of hell. Oh, we had fun here. Speaking of fun, the sun's coming up and that purple is looking a bit gross at the moment. Let's turn that down. All right, so if D is the conclusion and also the new definition, E must be the demonstration. So we ask for a demonstration of this state of mind in the past, like the lawnmower scene. Where did you most intensely have that state of mind? It can be difficult to identify that state of mind because it could be a common state of mind, a part of one's background. That's not unusual. If they're finding it hard to remember an early scene, look at more present examples like at play or at work. And then if you're really blocked, maybe try some other techniques like see a shrink to get over that block, just so you can recall an early intense demonstration of that state of mind. But again, that block can be another example of your problem. So always insights. Having a problem ain't a problem. In this game, having a problem is a puzzle. So when the past scene is reviewed, key themes and ideas that function through family roles begin to emerge, like subject B and his dad. What's his role? His role is to lie. His role is to take the blame. His father's role is not to be around when he has success. That's what it means to be loving. Who the hell wants that kind of love, says subject B in the midwife talk. So key themes and ideas. What's key themes and ideas? Division. Remember here, key themes and ideas from, so definition, how does it function? And look at divisions or examples of that. So you can synthesize the key, key themes and ideas can evolve that you can then synthesize in the next step. So the definition is a state of mind. So let's give them numbers. We had A, B, C, D is both of these. It's D and that's D here. That's the idea of hyparxis. The top of one level is the beginning of the next. That's how we learn. That's how we evolve. Demonstration. So an example, intense example. And then from that, we look at the themes or key ideas. Themes. And they were the family roles, which in this particular is family roles. And so that's what we've been doing, D, E, F. So we've been in F. We found that present scene and we've been exploring it to see the themes that evolve from that reflection in midwifery that we are facilitating through asking questions in the most ideal conditions. So we see some family roles. What's this mean about your idea of love? That's F. G, as your distortions are reduced. So keep in mind, he's saying, hey, how come I'm not remembering this? I didn't remember it this way. And why am I believing it to be that I was the cause of the problem? So in this reflections, our distortions of the past are reduced. We have a new way of perceiving the past that's apparent. That's the whole section of G. Not doing much. So it seems like here, well, the conclusion of the first step, the definition step, ends in a definition, a state of, ends in the demonstration state of mind. But it seems like the conclusion here is less distortion of the past. Isn't that interesting? The conclusion was a new way of understanding, a new definition. But here the conclusion is a less distorted functioning. So every category has the conclusion, which is an upgrade or a leveling up of that category. Or what we could say is a new usia. A new usia. A new way of reflecting on yourself is the mark of the transition. Now I'm reflecting on my problems, the definition of my problems in a new way, new self-reflection. Now I'm ready for the next category. So what's the new usia of the demonstration category? New usia a less distorted functioning. How are we functioning? We're reflecting on our past. Isn't that neat? So after we have a less distorted view of the past, which seems to be where subject B is at right now, right? If that's the case, then we can say subject B is ready for the new stage in midwifery. So notice, because we have got this understanding of because we went through all this work to find the dialectical structure behind what we were given in the text, we are solving the puzzles together. We can recognize what exactly is going on in this conversation about the lawnmower. Shrinks don't do this. That's why it's the new paradigm for solving problems. Because they don't have keywords like Usia. They're not familiar with the dialect. Because, like all human beings, they are still at the level of belief. Learning the dialectic is how we move from belief to understanding, because it is understanding, along with doing midwifery, of course. So hey, has he got a less distorted view of the past? Then he's at G. Why? Because he's been asked to make conclusions on his family roles. Let's see it in the book. F. So, within the demonstration category, what's the demonstration of your problem, the state of mind? Oh, can you think of it? That's D. E. What's a time where you felt, in the time demonstration? Oh, little lawnmower. Okay. F. Let's talk about this lawnmower seen for 2 years, and now we can challenge the subject to face the puzzles of the lawnmower scene and conclude about the meaning. What does it mean? What does it mean about love for you to take the blame? What does it mean in your family role? Are you equals? You said you were equals, but you are having a less distorted view of your past. You weren't an equal, were you? Daddy could lie and you have to eat, what did he say? Eat the shit. Ooh. G, which is so F is the division, divided up into your family roles. The midwife challenges the subject to face the puzzles. It's okay. It's not a blame game and problems are solvable. And conclude. If you are able to conclude, you'll have a less distorted view of the past. Now you're at G. A reduction in your distortion is an upgrade. You've leveled up as a human being. So that conclusion, a new way of seeing the past, is the new definition. So G, that less distorted view of the past. Okay, becomes the next category is division. We can say definition of a problem, demonstration category, how does it function? And now we've got the division stage. And the division starts with the end of the previous, so that G is also G here, which is the new definition of the division category is a less distortion. Perception of past. Perception. You've upgraded your perception. H. Now connections between the similarities of the past and present scene can now be made. Interesting. Remember, this is you're leveling up as a human being. You've leveled up your definition of the problem. You've leveled up how you function as a human being, demonstration. You can see better. but now you can make use of your functioning, self to others, to other others. Remember? Self to self, definition. How you function, self to others. Now you can use that functioning to other others. What other others do we want to use our upgraded functioning? What's our upgraded functioning? We can see reality better. We can remember better. That's an upgrade as a human being, remember? So what do we want to do with that? The self to others is demonstration or functioning. Others to other others is division. So it seems like the best way of using our less distorted view of our own past is to make connections to other others, or past and present. So that's the division. We're making use of our upgraded usia, our upgraded functioning, to connect past and present. That's demonstration. Similarities of the past and present scene. So likeness. Let's say similar. We'll keep the right words. Similarity between the past scene we've been exploring, the lawnmower, and present. How is this similarity playing out between your past and present? And it sounds like we were already doing that. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Because he's saying, hey, this taking the blame for someone for daddy's mistake in the past, now I can see with my less distorted upgrade of the past, I can see how that past scene is playing out in my present, because that Nepo baby crew member on my boat screwed up with the anchor and the engine, causing the boat to crash, and I took the blame for that. He is seeing how the things we learned in our past from our earliest teachers, the king priest of the house, our parents, demanding an allegiance to a bullshit fucking belief that goes all the way back to caveman times. That's what the parents insist on. And it's not a blame game, because every human being has to get it. Otherwise we wouldn't be here. So it's not about saving up. Oh no, my parents were not like that. Bullshit. Are they a human parent? Then they're like that. Why else would you be here? It's not a blame game. It's not personal. It's universal. So, but also those origin scenes are the cause of our problems in the present. That's key. That's H. So I would be, we can guess, would be division. So that functioning of our new way of seeing to make connections between past and present. How do we use that functioning? That's division. How do we use that? Because that's self to self is our new perception. Self to others, we use it. How do we use that new perception? To connect past and present. Then how do we use that functioning in a meaningful way to other others? That would be I. And it is. The meanings can be now seen as solutions or hypotheses that account for the failure to achieve excellence in piloting a boat, in writing a book, in making love to your wife, in doing the job you want. And the individuals are urged to authenticate. So you can't do this in faith. You can't do this in belief. There's no authentication. You just believe it until you die and spend a life as a slave. That's savagery and belief-based thinking. But here you can authenticate your hypotheses in your experience as you pursue your goals. So what do? You use this here as a conclusion, as a hypothesis, which is understanding. Understanding isn't knowledge, but a likely hypothesis. You use it to pursue goals. Or have a better future. So we see past, present, and future playing out within the division. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that neat? Now, as you go out in the world and you test your understanding from midwifery, you should come to some sort of, you should take from all of your pursuits and your goals and having a better relationship, making sweet love to that lady, or piloting the, that's disgusting.
Can't you just engage with anything?
Okay,
You are a fantastic.
okay,
What feminists want is
okay. No love in the sound drops. They're random, by the way. That's why I don't know what's going to happen. We should have some themes that will allow us to synthesize. A key theme will eventuate that will, if we can unify that theme to a new insight, that should be F. That should be the conclusion. Let's see what the conclusion is from our pursuing our goal. J, K, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. Not F. H, I, J. There we go. What? Way. Here we are. It now begins to be an important part of nearly every talk for the subject to ponder why they accepted and believe this self-image. There we go. So it seems like, from what the conclusion seems to be, the upgrade is, the leveling up, seems to be, is you realize that the thing that is prevented you from reaching your goal has been a certain self-image. So from these early scenes, tied to the family roles that are playing out in a likeness or similarity in your present, the thing that is either blocking you from your failure, from your success, or you're able to get to success if you drop it, is a self-image. It begins to be an important part of nearly every talk for the subject to ponder why they accepted and believed this self-image. By their own reflections, they are brought to see that a false belief about themselves influences them and be said to mold them in some way, and it is this that shapes their way of anticipating reality. Interesting. So, the conclusion is a self-image. Or is it a false belief? Okay. It's either a false belief or a self-image. That is the primary definition of this new level. Let's see what's functioning. A new level of exploring occurs when the connections between problems are sought, the interlocking effects are made visible, and each can be traced to significant persons in one's life. Well, the dynamics of a personal problem become visible when the problem is seen as not only necessarily occurring when it does, but having a force that shapes the dialogue itself. For the problem must also play itself out, demonstrate, here's our demonstration, in the presence of the midwife, or if in midwifery, if it's seen as meaningful. Okay, is the problem a false belief or is the problem a self-image? So we've got a new definition, and it's functioning in K, but it's functioning in the talk. Okay, what's the division? Maybe that will give us a clue as to whether it's our focus is the self-image or the false belief. Finally, this is the last one. Finally, there are those who recognize that their more mature and significant goals are suprapersonal, requiring them to focus on what is called a self-actualizing process, or simply philosophical goals. Good thing we have our nose in the symposium, or simply, yes, philosophical goals. And of course, of those, there are some that go on to learn the higher functions of midwifery. So it sounds like midwifery can also level up itself. You can be a midwife not only of your problems, but facilitating people to go through the symposium, to go through the yoga of beauty and love, to reach those supra-personal or beyond the individual self, because we're talking about being, which is the same being for everyone, the same mind, beauty itself. And that would be the higher functioning of midwifery. So, yeah, we didn't learn what the new definition of it was. It's either the image or the belief. It's interesting. So we take both. So the upgrade from the previous level has been a less distortion. That's our new way of new definition. What do we use this new way of perceiving the part? How do we use it? A less distorted way of perceiving our life to make a connection between the past and present. Okay, we've made some connections. We've seen how we play out our problems in the present from that early scene. Use it as a hypothesis to go out in the world and pursue your goals and have a better future. And then come back and realize the thing that was blocking you was, in each instance, what was it? A self-image, an image of the self. Self-image. That is molded by a false belief about self. Which sounds like the divided line. We looked at the divided line earlier, and we saw, hey, what we want to do is, it seems like at the end, we crossed the line here. We crossed the evolutionary line into dianoia and nous. Understanding, which is the third level of, the divided line is the stages of cognition that humans have, that any being have as they evolve. Dianoia is about being, which can be apprehended as nous or ousia. Dianoia is also, understanding is also the shadow of knowing. It's the intelligibility of being that allows for its reflection into our three-dimensional world that we can perceive through understanding. Equally so, on the negative side of the divided line, the visible realm of opinions, the realm of becoming, we have belief too, that causes our image thinking. So as dianoia is caused by nous, so too our image of ourself is caused by an unsuspected false belief we call the pathologos. And just as dianoia can lead us back to knowledge, so too our image of ourself only serves to re-justify the false beliefs we begin with. Staying out stagnant, staying in our problems, a self-fulfilling prophecy. Some belief about myself, my whole way of being says subject B is wrong. That becomes my image, and then my whole life becomes proving, hey, I'm wrong all the time. You can say, as another example, I get a religious belief, and my thinking is about Jeebus, or about Moses, or about Muhammad, or about whoever the fuck. And if I just think in that way, all it will do is prove that stupid false belief that I had to begin with. Now, normally I say, but not your religious belief, but if you're far enough into the series, you know it's not a personal thing. Don't be precious about your beliefs. You're here to cross this line and develop understanding that you can confirm in your experience of noose. Similar to what we saw in midwifery, your hypotheses about the connections between the past and the present, you go out in the world and you test by reaching your goals. And then you realize that the thing that has been blocking you from your goals all the way along has been an image of yourself formed that that you now understand as being your past. You are using an analogy from your past, projecting it onto your present, and that projection is an image of yourself. So everything that blocks, your relationships, what you can and can't do, is just the inevitable manifestation of this original image. If you believe you are rubbish and no one likes you, then you'll live that way and you'll prove it. And so the conclusion category, or the definition of the next category that we are at, is recognition that, as it says, every talk becomes now about how, as you take your connections between the past and the present out into your future, test it out, you realize, oh heck, the thing that was preventing me previously, that I am now dissolving through all my midwife talks, I'm not gaining anything. You could say I'm gaining a hypothesis, but really what I'm doing is dissolving this image of myself. And then the talks now become about what was the belief, second level of the divided line, that the pathologos belief that caused that image of the self. And by the way, if midwifery is an exercise of dianoia, the self-image and the belief behind it, the new definition of the conclusion category, come to a conclusion, heck, I have an image of myself I didn't even realize. Heck, there must be a belief about it from an early scene. Will demonstrate itself in blocking the talk, because the talk is to cross this line. That's the demonstration of this. You'll get to see it play out in real time. Your image of yourself that is molded by an unsuspected false belief. But the very last part, which would be the division, so if that's how it functions, demonstration, the division, the implications of that is, well, what we read in the last part, L, is there are those who recognize the more mature and significant goals are suprapersonal, self-actualizing, or philosophical goals, including midwifery. It sounds like the division is recognizing what's suprapersonal, nous. What's philosophy? Using understanding to reach nous. Also, what's midwifery? Using understanding to help people there. So it sounds like L is you are now free of that line. You're on this side of the line now. The definition of the last of the conclusion category is, heck, I am able to reach my goals because I'm letting go of this. So now all my talks are about what's the underlying belief that must have caused that. And you know what? It'll play out in the midwife talks. So every midwife talk will be clues about this. That's how it will function. But the more you go through midwifery, you'll find yourself crossing this line. That's L. That's the last stage. That's the 12th stage of midwifery. Because now you're on the other side of the line. You are realizing that the goals are nous, which is transpersonal, suprapersonal, beyond the individual. Self-actualizing, which goes beyond that, because the self is the cause of even this. and also midwifery. So those are the three fundamental uses of dianoia, we could say. Dianoia becomes to reach philosophical goals, being itself, beauty itself, nous, self-actualizing, to go beyond that, to reach the self, and also to turn back and midwife others. So it sounds like L is the division so what's the so we've got the leveling up of this level, this line here. The new Usia is realizing that you are not a self-image. So that's J. The J is the definition of the conclusion category, or synthesis and analysis, or conclusion, which is others back to self. So in other words, now we are relating back to ourselves. Which starts as the definition, a self-image. And so the J level of reflection is self-image. We are image. We are reflecting about its cause, which is belief. And then A, B, C, H, I, J, K. That's a new self-to-self, self-image that will function interlocking effects within all problems. That self-image and belief will connect all problems and function in midwifery itself. That's how this self-image functions. It functions to connect all your problems together. And how does that connection, how does that connect HOJKL? How does that connection divide up? So you use this new insight into an unsuspected, into the fact that you're not a self-image, but there's a belief causing it. You use that self-image and false belief to connect all your problems. And then what do you do with this connection of all your problems? You seek philosophy, goals, and midwife goals. And from that, you'll realize that the self is intrapersonal. So we're not given the next stage, which would be the conclusion. But we got a clue. Let's give it this one, question mark. The true self is, what was the word? Suprapersonal. Is suprapersonal. That would be the synthesis from this. synthesis, which would then function as an analysis to, you have to actually reach it to reach the true self. That would be others back to self. But remember, at the end of the category, you've upgraded. So new Usia, not the self-image, the new Usia is the new Usia of the true self. You know yourself. You've reached the final Usia, Nous, knowing yourself as pure mind, or if you're bringing together both midwifery and philosophy, you can go beyond it to the true self, which is beyond being. So that's the thing that you can, is not given in the book, but it would be the next step that's left out. So if that's the conclusion, we can take this new Usia of the true self all the way back to our problem and realize, hey, what was our problem? Really, our problem, well, it wasn't what we defined it in part A, because then we realized it was a state of mind in D. And then we realized what was the new Usia? The new Usia was a perception of our life or past. So the new definition of our problem, state of mind. A new functioning, we can see our lives more clearly. As a result, we realize, hang on a second, as I'm able to reach my goals, my new Usia was, I was carrying an image of myself. So now our talks become, well, what's the root cause behind that image of yourself that wasn't you? And if you carry it, you're going to be blocked. If you're free of it, you're able to reach your goals. Isn't it interesting? You're not gaining anything, you're letting go of something. That's false. As you reflect on your beliefs, you realize that that false belief can connect all your problems together. And it's a false belief about the self. And you can use that dissolution of your self-image by discovering what must be the false belief behind it to eventually, the last stage, reach the true self that is supra-personal. So this new Usia is, hey, I'm not this self-image, but it ends up with, but now I'm able to see the self. We can take that away all the way back to the start and say, hey, what was the cause of my problems? Not knowing the self. Or rather having a false image about the self caused by a fundamental belief that prevent me from actually knowing the self as the suprapersonal being and the self-actualization of knowing the self beyond being. But also integrating this whole process you've gone through. So this is the thing. We don't want to just take acid and have an experience of being, or if you're super, super lucky, the self beyond that. Because in going through this process of understanding, we end up with not only a knowledge of the self that's beyond images and beliefs, but also the truth self is intrapersonal. You reach the true self, but the new Usia of the true self would also have to include midwife goals. And here we have suprapersonal, self-actualization, and higher functions of midwifery. So we are functioning. So what we end up with at the end of this entire process is not just, the removal of the false image of ourselves by recognizing the false belief that was molding that self-image. And it's not just the suprapersonal experience of being, or the or beyond the transpersonal or transcendent self that's the cause of being even. So we don't just know the self, the second hypothesis, and the one self, the first hypothesis, but the higher functions of midwifery, the new usia of the true self's functioning. Having gone through all that process, having gone through the human process of getting a false image of yourself, causing your problems, getting a false belief that molds your self-image, causing your problems, manifesting as a state of mind, distorting your view of the past, until you put it all together and realize you're projecting the analogy from your past into your present. And then you test out the implications of that understanding by being able to reach your goals and realizing that every time I reach my goals, I'm realizing that that image of the self that I used to have isn't true. It was inconsistent with those goals. So as I dissolve that self-image that wasn't true to begin with, and also learn the false belief behind it, I'm able to reach new goals until ultimately the goal becomes philosophical and I reach usia. And then beyond that self-actualization, reaching a knowing of the self that's beyond even the experience of self, because something has to be having an experience. That's one of the puzzles in philosophy. But also the higher functions of midwifery. Having gone through all of this, we learn that, having gone through all of this, we learn the art to facilitate that as well. So not only do we dissolve the false image of the self, dissolve the false belief about the self, not only do we gain an understanding of the self, not only do we have an experience of the self in usia, true usia. So it's not this new usia, now it's true usia. And it's not of the false state of mind of the self or the false memory of the self. It's the true usia of the true self. After dissolving the image of the self and the belief of the self. But we can also, and functioning of what we could call the art of self. So just as we had a upgrade of the usia earlier, when we have a new functioning of our perception, every upgrade of the stages was a new usia until we reach the usia, a new usia of ourselves. That's what usia means, self-reflection. So the first upgrade of the usia, you could say, hey, at first level, first upgrade was we realized that our problems wasn't what we thought was our problems. We ended up with a new usia or self-reflection of our self-problem. Of self-problem. Ourselves problem. And state of mind. The next usia was a new usia of our perception. We can say, yeah, new usia right over here. New usia of self-perception or functioning, which is the demonstration. We've upgraded our demonstration. We can demonstration is another word for functioning. So new functioning. Usia of self-reflection. Now we have a new usia of self-image, that we are not a self-image. So new usia of self, we're not our self-image. Culminating in not only a new usia, but the usia of not just our self functioning or our self problem or our self perception, but a new usia of the self. And not just a new functioning that becomes the definition of the level of the next level, But it's the new Usia of the self with the higher self functioning. Every level is a new functioning, new perception of your state of mind, new perception of your past, new perception of your image, new functioning, being able to reach your problems, being able to reflect on your past, being able to understand your problems. These are all higher functionings that allow for that upgrade, leveling up, until the Usia of the self and the highest functioning of self, which we can call philosophical midwifery, which includes its highest philosophy. But let's not forget that we also have to do dream analysis to help in both. And we probably want to write stories about it. Get people on board to make it exciting. This is not just for me or for Sus or for Reeve or for who's our other friend? Or Hadvar here. Not just us four. I mean, we're the coolest four around. Right, Emma?
The more holes, the better.
Exactly. What we always say. What's the highest functioning of self? Dianoia. Or Phila, the art of Phila Dianoia. The love of understanding. That's where it ends. So what? Well, so now we can understand the 12 and mysterious 13th stages of midwifery, of the process of midwifery to solve problems from chapter 4. We can ask, what stage are we at now with Mr. B? Let's jump in to say, okay, so we've done an excellent review, and each of the stages we were also using what we were seeing from Mr. B. Let's really pinpoint what stage are we at with Mr. B. Also, what stage are we at with Pierre? Well, he's at K, right? Right at the end. Good for him. And good for us, because we get to read his book. Because, remember, we see Pierre, which is also what we're learning. We're not just learning about the subject. We are subjects. We're also midwives. So, we see Pierre, the author of the book, doing midwifery. He also functions as philosophy, as we've seen in this book as well. And he was the one who helped get us the Balboa translations of Plato, so we can do philosophy. He also pioneered dream analysis. We've done a couple of dream analysis episodes on this series, but he did say, by the way, I'm leaving you guys on the channel. But he didn't say you guys. He's leaving the book to be written by someone else. But he did write the book, so that's the mythology. And he's also written some dialogues. So we're reading Is It All Relative, and we're reading Socrates and Jesus. So we can see at least mythology and midwifery and philosophy, and well, we also see. If you want to check out the PRS Pierre Grimes series from the 96 and 97, I think, 100 episodes, fantastic, symphonies of logos, really amazing stuff. You want to check them out on YouTube. And half the time he's doing dream analysis and midwifery, so they go hand to hand. So we recognize Pierre, the midwife, is someone who's reached K. And our question is, because he's reached the highest functioning of Philodianoia, the Usia of the self with the highest functioning, or the art, what we could call the art. The art of self, or the excellence. We talked about excellence today in the chat. That's what it would be. So we've got, so we can see the 4 categories of the dialectic represented in the highest art, showing that philosophical midwifery is within the category of, philosophical midwifery is within the category of philodianoia, because philodianoia, the love of dianoia, is the dialectic. And we see definition, demonstration, division, and this final one, conclusion. And within each of the stages, we see the dialectic as well. Conclusion. And one of the conclusions that we can make together is that philosophical midwifery is therefore one of the aspects of philodianoia, because it's dialectic, and we've seen it. And we're also seeing somebody go through it in subject B. All right, we're back. I had a quick break. So, out of all of those stages, A, B, C, D, D, E, F, G, G, H, I, J, K, L, wait. Gone too far. H, I, J, yeah. A, B, C, D, D, E, F, G, G, H, I, J, J, K, L, M. Oh, I got my thing mixed up. Right, thank you, Reeve, for helping me with the alphabet. Thank you so much. H, J, K, yeah, okay. Yeah, right. You know the alphabet. Very impressive. A, B, C, D is the first category. N, F, M, G, okay. You're a funny person. What do you say?
What feminists want is to specifically ruin your life.
It's not relevant, Emma. A, B, C, D. Definition, demonstration, division. Yeah, well, I'm simplifying it. There's 4 in the first category, because there are 4 categories of the dialectic. Define the thing. How does it function? Divide it up and come to a conclusion. A, B, C, D for section 1. Section 2. Because D rolls over, we count D twice. Because the top of one level is the next of the, that's the idea of hyparxis. So the sorts of people who are on this channel are people who have loved learning enough to realize that there must be a learning involving being. So that's the transition from the highest part of learning, philomathesis, love of learning, to philosophy. Well, what's the cause of the physical world? Or what's the most important thing we can learn about? The self. How do we learn about the self? Midwifery and philosophy. So the highest level of one level transitions into the next, which is why we most want to reach out to people who love learning, who love understanding the most in our world. And they've realized, well, shit, the most important thing to learn about is ourselves, or our problems, or our mind, or the nature of meaning of life. Those are the people we want to reach out to, because here, the highest level, the conclusion, realizing that the problem wasn't what we thought it was, it's to do with a state of mind, becomes the lower level of the next level. So we count D twice. So A, B, C, D, D, E, F, G. This, we realize that we have our past, we see our past more clearly. That rolls over. G, H, I, J. We realize as we are able to reach our goals now in a way that we couldn't before because of midwifery. We realized that there was an underlying self-image that we were attached to that we didn't know about, causing our blocks that we are now able to let go of as we reach our goals, because we realize there is a false belief, an unsuspecting, that's the pathologos, false belief about ourselves that was molding our self-image. So it's a new reflection on ourself, realizing we are not our self-image. That's the highest level of functioning in our world. So we go out and reach our goals, not only to reach our goals, but also to realize I'm not my image. There is a self beyond the everyday. So these are physical world goals mainly. Until we realize, oh, the thing that's most important is not physical, it's the self. That new reflection on ourself that we are not an image, but there's an unsuspected belief behind it, is J, but that becomes the lowest level of the next. Hey, realizing you're not your self-image and you're not your belief, that's a big insight. How many people in the physical world, regular people, normies, recognize that they have a self-image and it's not them, that they have an unsuspected belief molding that self-image? Hardly anyone. In fact, all of these levels of self-reflection are rare. Very rarely do we engage in ousia, self-reflection. Which is why the people who are reflecting on themselves enough to recognize that the self is worth learning about are the sorts of people who gravitate towards this kind of channel. And there's not a lot of them out there. But recognizing we're not our self-image or not self-belief is the highest kind of goal you can reach in the everyday world, but that's also the lowest kind of thing for the next level. This conclusion level is about philosophy. If we're not our self-image and there are not the false belief about it, J, well, we can use that insight to connect all our problems, because all our problems must be ways of reality, friendly reality, intelligible. Reality is understandable and friendly. Why? Because all of our problems can be connected as messages that we are not our self-image. All our problems have been to guide us along this process to make this jump here. The goal of the new job, or the goal of the better relationship, or the goal of whatever, have all been just as ways to tell you, hey, you can't have this until you realize the self. And how can you go on the journey to discover the nature of self if you think you already know what you are? That's what Socrates talks about in Book 7 of the Republic. He says, hey, the problem with the training to be a philosopher king or queen is hardly anyone does it because everyone thinks they know what they are. They think they know the self. I know what I am. So who's going to learn about the self if we all think we know it? Therefore, the highest kind of learning that we, as we reach our goals through midwifery, through this process, is to realize, I don't know myself. It was an image the whole time that was blocking me from my goals the whole time. So every block was a friendly and understandable message about the reality, the universe we're in, which is friendly in a paternal way, paternally friendly and caring, to tell us, wake up, son. You're not this image. But you also got to learn this process to recognize that, because learning the process is part of the game. Part of why we're here. We come back with something. The hero's journey. Oh, and if you've seen the latest Rick and Morty episode, Rick and Morty talk about the hero's journey a lot. And in season 8, I think, the recent season, there's a whole episode about Rick and Morty going on a hero's journey within a movie-making machine. Anyway, they have that circle of the hero's journey. But you have to learn a new skill that you take back with you. This is the new skill. This is the paradigm of the hero's journey. We were in it. This process. Because we return back to the self with synthesis and analysis. Other back to self. Self to self. Here we go. Self to other to other. And then other back to self. Return home with an art. That's dianoia. That's the dialectic. So what? So when you realize you're not the self-image, that's a huge thing that most people don't realize, which is why most people don't get into philosophy, says Socrates in the Republic. But that realization is just the beginning of your next journey. Because now you can connect all your problems together with that false belief molding your self-image. So, new definition, you can use it. But now that you've used it, what else can you do? Other to other. Now you can seek the true nature of the self, which is much higher than the beginning. So JKLM was the one that I got wrong, and Reeve is right. Alphabet is tricky. That's why we have that little song. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, P, because I got it wrong. JKLM is the mysterious one that we left out, because we have to fill it in. But now that the self-image, we're not the self-image and beliefs, so now we can solve our problems, but now we can seek the true self, that's philosophical goals, and use our understanding to become a midwife. Therefore, we reach the final Usia, which is the Usia, which is Usia itself, or self-Usia, of self. So there we have self-Usia, and the higher functioning, because each level of development has been a new functioning. Now we have the best functioning, the best Usia, the best self, along with the art. So we can say we end up with the art of the self, as which we take back ultimately as other back to self, because that's the 4 levels. Conclusion. So definition, self to self. Demonstration, self to other to other, as we connect our past and future together and able to reach our goals. And then we realize I'm not the self-image, I'm not the false belief behind it that molds it, but I am the self. That's the art of philosophical midwifery that we take back to beginning. Or within the hero's journey, we return home with the new skill to complete the hero's journey. Remember, the hero's journey was written by Joseph Campbell, who we did talk about in chapter 1, because Pierre, the author of this book, met the guy. They used to have coffee in New York. And I've run out of coffee, but I have some Coke, so cheers. And this was the question he asked the guy. Hey, you really fancy helping George Lucas write Star Wars? And in 30 years, you're going to be talked about in every season of Rick and Morty. But do you want to know the real hero's journey? And he ran away. Run. Of course, we recognize why. It's difficult. It's a challenge to go through this. That's why we only have the coolest people here who know all about the alphabet. So, what stage is our subject on? Is our question. So let's bring up where we're at. Here we are. So, reviewing the past scene, that was right. So this whole scene, this whole review has been about a past scene. So he's already recognized his problem as a state of mind. So he's passed the first 4, A, B, C, D. D is state of mind. Intense example, E. Themes and family roles, F. Let's bring it up. So demonstration to D. So he's been talking for 2 years, so he probably came with a problem, and they've already gone through this process. Probably already identified the state of mind, which allowed them to be talking about E, the functioning of that state of mind, the intense example. We have been looking at F. We have been exploring the themes from the family roles. What's his role between him and himself and his dad? Who is the king priest? Who is, he has to swallow this shit, right? And now he just came to the realization, why does it, in 12, why does it keep going away? It's almost as if I don't look at this. What's going away? The obvious proof that his dad saying, you don't know how to work on small things, just bring it over, is false. Why do I keep forgetting it? So now he has a less distorted view of his past, which is G. So he's just upgraded from here to here. And by the way, this new seeing of his past, that's a new usia, meaning he's ready to transition. It's a transitional point. By the way, as a midwife, if they're not, it's that we're trying to reach these levels of insight. That's the awakening. These are mini enlightenment experiences, a new perception of yourself to do with your state of mind, a new perception of self-reality. These are mini insights. These are mini enlightenment experiences about the self. And that's what enlightenment is. It's a sudden realization about the true nature of self, either as being the experience of self in true usia, or the one self. Those are the two fundamental classes of enlightenment experience. So we're facilitating many enlightenment experiences through this process. Meaning, when he realized, heck, I've been forgetting about my past. Here, where he says, why does it keep going away? It's almost as if I don't want to look at this. When asked what effect this blame has on his understanding, when asked what effect taking the blame has on his understanding of the encounter with his father, he says, it makes me forget. It makes it a foolish thing. He laid this thing on me. At this point, he makes a connection and gains an insight. That's what we're after. We are facilitating insights or mini enlightenment experiences through dianoia. That's the whole game. That's the whole game of everything. Insight through dianoia. Insight through the dialectic. That's our human game. Not to blindly defend our ignorance to Hitler or to the priest or the king. Or the priest king of our family. Nope. It's to facilitate insights into the nature of self and reality, or self and usia, and functioning through dianoia. Here he has, he's gained an insight. And by the way, that's significant to us as midwives, because this insight that's what usia is. All insights are mind recognizing or remembering itself at a higher level. That's what insight is. Insight of something. Something has to be having it. It's not an insight. Oh, suddenly I know how many beans there are in China. That's not an insight. Insight is of mind, with mind, about mind. Mind minding mind. That's why we can say it's a oneness. And here is a version. An insight into a boat trip he made, which now is the subject of a model. Keeps racing through my mind because the key to the whole goddamn boat trip just now. So he had an insight into the connection between his past and present. Which means It sounds like H, similarities between the past and present. Or if it's an insight, it could be here. He has a less distorted version of the past. That's the new Usia. So that's G, which is also here. So not only did he have an insight into, hey, I keep forgetting my past, but now I'm seeing it again, maybe many times after over 2 years of this talk. That's less distorted version of the past, G, but G, remember, the highest level of one is the lowest of the next. So it's probably here. He's probably crossed that line because, and we can know as a midwife he's crossed that line because not only is he less distorted view of his past due to our guided questions, he's jumped to H. He's seen the similarity between his boat in the present, he's writing a book about, and his past. So we can safely say he's crossed that line and he's in H now, which is neat. Hooray for him. And we give him a nice round of applause.
Wow.
And we also say wow.
That's where you live, in the weirdo pool. You're going around.
Keeps telling me I live in a weirdo. I don't even know what that means. Okay, H. We're mapping his journey. Isn't this neat? Who's the Captain? The name of the book, Who's the Captain? He actually published the book. You can check it out. Who's the captain? Which is a metaphor. Who's the captain of your own self? I think that's the metaphor of the book. It's been a while since I read it. Maybe we can read it on the channel one day. If anybody gets into the book, Who's the Captain? And let me know in the Discord or in the comment section. What was it like reading the book after we've spent so much time reviewing one of his actual midwife talks? Has it been cool? Did you see anything? Neat. Oh. Let's change my posture a bit. That's better. Okay, so then he says he took the blame in the present. So that's H, reflecting the taking the blame with his father. Then he asked again about his, so we've gone back. So we've gone from H back to F, which is, he's crossed this line. But then the midwife asks him to make some more connections. Now that you've made this connection, let's go back here to F. So it's not one, and so it's like a fluid process. Now let's see more about your family roles with, now that you've seen the connection. Actually, no, it might even be still in here because now we're looking at the similarities. So we are, you could say we're exploring the division here, the family roles, but I think this also is here as well because we're going to blow up more the past so that we can connect it to the present. What would happen if you actually disagree with your father? Something terrible would happen. Where the hell? So we had to, the only alternative that he thought was to keep that pain and swallow the shit given by his father. Wait. Now, asked why he believed his father, the midwife suggested the way to answer that question further was to explore the state of mind in the past scenes prior to the lawnmower scene, where someone in the family has opposed his father. Why? Because he's just been asked, what would happen if you opposed his father? Something bad would happen. Why? He must have already learned it. So when that happens, well, you've already got the teaching. The teaching wasn't a consequence of this lawnmower scene. It's something he's already carrying. Therefore, the midwife knows, okay, let's go back further. Let's find an even more prior scene where you first learned that it would be dangerous to question the shit that you are being fed. Subject B remembers a past scene. He was a young boy riding in the backseat of the family car. The family was going to a beautiful lakeside. His mother had a road map and was giving directions to his father. She told him where to turn, but he passed it. It's not a big deal, thought B. But his father insisted it was his mother's fault, saying she didn't tell him to turn in time, and there was a heavy fight between them. Okay, so we've got another page. Another page to go, page and a half. So that might be a good time to call it, because we have done a fantastic review again of the categories of the dialectic, and it's worth reviewing over and over and over again, because as we've seen, that's where we're ending. When we completely go through this process ourselves, we will end up with the ousia, or self-ousia. But not only self-ousia, the highest functioning of the self, which ultimately is midwifery, which would include philosophy and the others as well. So in other words, this process, these 12 or 13 steps, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M. Yeah, 12 or 13 steps. The dialectic of the midwifery will be what we're ending up with. So it's good to nail it down and repeat it and review it and see it more and more and more. Because this, from what we've been reading, this seems to be the meaning of being alive. The meaning of going through the process of developing belief-based thinking, giving rise to a false image, which causes a certain state of being or state of mind, which functions as the cause of all our problems, negative thoughts, inappropriate actions, bad choice of goals, undermining our goals, sabotage, leading to us realizing we have to go through this midwifery process as a subject, and realizing that we are going to have more success in this process if we're also learning it, until ultimately the full completion of it is becoming a midwife ourselves, allowing us to reach pure ousia, let's say pure insight or the enlightenment experience, and some sort of recognition of self, what we said in the book, self-actualization, which would not only be the one self, the actualization or the recognition or the remembering or whatever is that state of knowing beyond knowing, actualization. But also self-actualization includes the highest functioning of self, returning back to the home or in the hero's journey with the new skill, the art of self, Dainoya. So it's worth nailing down as best we can until it's ingrained in our being. So much so that if we find ourselves in a dream, what would we be doing? If we find ourselves in a new incarnation, what would we be doing? If we find ourselves in a new dimension, would it be the same art? Is this just thinking? Is this just exploration? Is this how we benefit everyone at all times, no matter what universe, no matter what species, no matter what? Let's go all the way down to the bottom. Color your skin or whatever sex you are. Let's go beyond that. Whatever time you were born in, whatever planet you were born on, whatever species you are, any sentient being who has awakened self-reflection and language at any dimension. Therefore, would we want to bake it into our being? Therefore, the learning, not just the learning, but the nurturing of our own character and way of being. Let's not use character because that's about an image. Forget that. Simple way of being of self, way of thinking, way of communicating, way of creating the ideal conditions that benefit all sentient beings. Therefore, it's worth reviewing until it's baked into our being, whether we're in a dream or in a different dimension. That'll be how we smile and how we relate to anyone there or ourselves while we're there. So, this mastery of the logos, the dialectic, comes with a smile. Because it's not just for women or men or Muslims or Christians or people born in the 15th century, people born in 300 BC or 400 BC, or people born in 2025. But all beings, at all times, in all galaxies, in all possible universes. Therefore, the art of the self is a way of being we can practice and be happy with as we carry with it a smile. And we can smile as we watch it play out in a relationship between another human being going through this, learning to overcome the problems that he's been suffering with his whole life. Because this midwife who's been talking to him for 2 years at this point likely carries that same smile. Isn't that neat? We're learning about, now we could say one of the best human beings, but it's just a self-actualized person, no different than you or me at the end of this process. So we're learning about the model of ourselves. Isn't that neat? And we're seeing how that person functions to facilitate the same process in another person. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win.
Do that again with some effects.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win. Or
A win-win.
win-win-win-win-win. And as that smile we carry with us until the next one. Thank you so much everyone who's joined today and joined in chat. We are getting closer and closer to affiliates. All we need is an average of 3 people each stream, and then I start making the big bucks. I don't think that's how it works, but I know I have to get 3 viewers. Reviewing my alphabet. Yes. Yes. Think of that nursery rhyme. A, B, C, D. No, 1 is a number. Okay. The first thing you have to do is distinguish the numbers from the letters. And then you'll be on your way to mastering the alphabet. We have all sorts on this channel. And it's important to meet people where they're at. Numbers and letters can be confusing. But thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it, everybody. Okay, thanks. And like always, let's carry that wonder about this art of the self that we are moving towards, which seems to be why we're here. Isn't that interesting? And if what we're reading is true, we might be discovering we live in a understandable, friendly universe. Everything that we're getting is just a message about our self-image we don't know we have and the belief behind it, that we can learn this art. Isn't that a friendly way of being treated? What a universe we're in. And with that, I will see you in, where's my stuffy? The next one.